Hi, Jakob Stief here, the long-haired freaky dude. Today I'm going to review the ancient Grecian tragedy play, Iphigenia at Aulis, by Euripides, translated into English by Edward P. Coleridge. This was a fantastic tragedy. It did a great job at detailing the motives of the characters, and at harboring feelings of sadness and sorrow where necessary. This play employs a great use of tragic irony, which is actually a source of much of the sympathy, and connects the reader with the sorrow. Or I suppose as it was meant to be the watcher, because this was a play after all, it wasn't meant to be read as we're doing now, it was meant to be watched, performed. First, I think we need to understand why Agamemnon is going to fight in the Trojan War in the first place. A little backstory. Agamemnon is married to a chick named Clytemnestra. Her sister is Helen. They are both daughters of a man named Tynerius. The husbands of both the daughters made an oath to the father that if one of the daughters was ever captured, that they would both go to get her back. And so, when Helen made the life choice to become a hoe and go to Troy, hey, at least they have good condoms, right? Obviously not. The queen had 50 children after all, and not to mention the Trojan horse. Once it broke into the fortress, it broke open and released all of its... Never mind. But now that I think about it, that is a horrible brand name if you know history. Anyways, whenever Helen went to Troy, Agamemnon, not being married to her, still had to go and save her because of the oath he had made to Clytemnestra's father, Tynerius. I thought this to be rather interesting. I did not know this little bit of history until I had read this play. I always assumed that the motivation for Agamemnon going to fight in the Trojan War was his brother Menelaus, but no, rather it was his father-in-law. So, at least in this play, Menelaus is not the reason that Agamemnon is going to fight in Troy. In fact, Agamemnon and everyone else hates Helen, and in consequence her husband Menelaus, because he wants to go send hundreds and thousands of troops to go get her back. At first, Agamemnon was gonna go put his daughter Iphigenia up for sacrifice. Yeah, great idea. A heat-of-the-moment thing, I suppose. You see, an oracle had previously told him that in order for the Pelasgians to win, he would need to sacrifice his daughter. But, I mean, oracles aren't really that credible of a source, you know? I mean, they do take bribes, after all. I'm looking at you, Delphians. But for some reason, every single Aegean in the military took credence to that oracle and demanded that Agamemnon sacrifice his daughter. At least Achilles, of all people, is of right mind. He makes this reasonable point about seers. What is a seer? A man who, with luck, tells the truth sometimes, with frequent falsehoods, but when his luck deserts him, collapses then and there. It's about time an ancient Greek has said it. Seers and prophets of the ancient Greek world are just a bunch of processed baloney. I think this marks an important shift in the thought process of the Hellenistic Greeks' mindsets, and perhaps sets the stage for the great philosophers. Now, do keep in mind that I doubt Achilles actually said this. These are the words of Euripides, who is years later and significantly closer, in fact, living in the same time about as the great philosophers. Anyways, Achilles sent a letter to Iphigenia saying that she is to be married to Achilles, but not really. It's just a ploy to get her there and kill her. I mean, what girl wouldn't want to respond to a letter saying she is going to be married to Achilles? Not to mention he's a freaking, son of a deity, but he's incredibly strong, he's incredibly wealthy and noble. It's enough to bring any girl into war. Agamemnon finally realizes that a good father tries not to kill their children. So he breaks this to Menelaus and his regrets. And he says that he can't do it, and this makes Menelaus sad. Thou thinkest crooked thoughts, one thing now, another formerly, and something different present. Menelaus makes this good, obvious point, but it is something that I took liking to. At the beginning of the ancient Greek tragedies, I'm talking, Aeschylus and Sophocles, and then finally Euripides, characters were very narrow-minded. They think something and then their mindset never changes. These characters were obdurate, set in stone, but here we see a much more realistic inner struggle. Should I do this? Should I not do this? It really does do a good job at pulling out those inner struggles of Agamemnon as he must make a decision for this very, very difficult choice. Agamemnon addresses his now changed mindset as such. I will not slay my children, nor shall thy interests be prospered by justice in thy vengeance for a worthless wife. He finally realizes that the life of his own child is not worth his brother's slutty, unfaithful wife. If he wants to sacrifice a kid, Menelaus should sacrifice his own child, Hermione. This makes Menelaus even sadder because the entire Achaean army will refuse to go to Troy unless Agamemnon sacrifices his daughter Iphigenia. Therefore, he can't get back his probably now STD-laden wife. So sad. And Menelaus has the gall to wonder why he has no friends. Bros before hoes, man. Bros before hoes. In this case, literal brothers. Agamemnon is of sound mind on this decision, at least for a little while. Friends thou hast, if thou seek not their destruction. Don't ask people to kill their children. They will be friends with you. Simple equation. I mentioned earlier that we see changes as Agamemnon faces his internal struggles. Well, there's also an internal battle going on in Menelaus as well, and he starts to have second thoughts. After he has time to think about it and process what Agamemnon has said, Menelaus comes back and says this. Sometimes love, sometimes the selfishness of their families causes a quarrel between brothers. I loathe a relationship of this kind which is bitterness to both. Menelaus has finally realized that with the sacrifice, he is asking for too much. He realized that his cheating wife just isn't worth the relationship with his brother. Agamemnon, he's not just a friend that he's lost, it's blood, it's family, so he's realized this and he's trying to make amends. Agamemnon is gracious of this change in mindset, but he also is having a change in mindset as he realizes that it's not because of his brother that he needs to sacrifice Iphigenia. He thought it was, but now he realizes that it isn't. He wants to sacrifice her because an entire bloody army wants her to be sacrificed. And if he doesn't comply, they will kill him and the rest of his family most likely. So he's grateful for Menelaus' change in mindset, but now Agamemnon is back to the sacrifice and he is going to go through with it. Now it's Menelaus trying to stop him. Thou must not fear the mob too much. And that's why you fail as a leader, Menelaus. The mob is meant to be feared. But he is right to some extent. The mob is being kind of a jackass. And of course, who's leading the mob? None other than Odysseus, who really is kind of a horrible person when he's in these ancient Greek tragedies. He is enslaved by the love of popularity, a fearful evil. Indeed. So Iphigenia finally arrives, and to Agamemnon's dismay, his wife also came, Clytemnestra. This scene, this horrible scene, it starts with Iphigenia flying into Agamemnon's arms, happier than ever to see her father whom she loves so much. And of course she's thinking this whole time that she is about to get married. And a conversation starts between the two, and I really think that this is one of the best conversations out of all of the Greek plays. It's just so masterfully crafted. There's just so much tragic irony. You just want to cry. You feel so bad for Iphigenia while all this is happening. You have Iphigenia who's so young and innocent and just bursting with joy because she loves her father and everything around her. And then you've got Agamemnon who's just being torn apart on the inside, but he's trying his best to not reveal it because he knows that he is about to kill her. And you can really feel Agamemnon's pain in this conversation as he desperately tries to conceal his emotions and his pain, but inevitably fails as it slips through the cracks. She wants to know what's irking him, to which he replies, I count thee happier than myself because thou knowest nothing. Essentially, ignorance is bliss. I don't know, I kind of felt that this great scene was very similar, at least in heart, to the ending of Mice and Men. there's a lot of similar things at play in contribution to the sorrow. And you have a person who is just happy and overjoyed and ignorant of the future. Then you have a person who inevitably knows what's about to go down and knows that he himself is going to have to be the one to do it. So, I can't help but wonder if John Steinbeck found inspiration in these Greek plays to write of Mice and Men, because now that I think about it, the endings are very, very similar. Nonetheless, I wish I could have just read this whole thing to you, but that is for you to read and enjoy and cry over. To make matters worse, later that day, Clytemnestra, by chance, stumbles upon Achilles and learns that Agamemnon is in fact lying about Iphigenia being married to him. So Clytemnestra is now angry because her daughter's about to be killed, and Achilles is now angry because his name was used without his permission. And just everyone is in total chaos. This play is very much like a domino effect. It starts with Agamemnon, then to Menelaus, then to Clytemnestra, then Achilles, then Iphigenia. It's crazy. Everyone sort of goes through the same process of emotions, the same wave. But as for Achilles, he has been used, his pride hurt. He's not, now anyways, he's not too much different from the blubbering Achilles in the Iliad. I am indignant to think that I was used as a tool. You are a tool, Achilles. Quit your blubbering. My proud spirit is stirred to range aloft, but if has learnt to grieve in misfortune and rejoice in high prosperity with equal moderation. You sure didn't do that in the Ilium, but because of this he does say that he is willing to save Iphigenia at all costs. And he's honest about these words too. He's literally about to risk his life and take on an entire army to save Iphigenia. Not even her own father could want to take on an entire army. So, there's something about Achilles here who has to be admired, even though what he's doing is just so stupid. It's noble, but it's definitely not going to end well. But fortunately, Achilles doesn't have to take on the entire army, either the result being him killing the entire army, which I wouldn't put past, or Achilles himself dying, which would of course, affect the outcome of Troy. And that's because Iphigenia eventually finds out. Now she actually realizes her father's dilemma and decides to honorably go to sacrifice. It's kind of ironic that the only person, the person who's directly being sacrificed and killed is the only one who doesn't go through the stage of regret or doubt in this matter or situation. She doesn't want anyone to die for her, and that leads me to the next thing. When she went to be sacrificed, she asked her mother two very simple things. 1. Don't be angry at Agamemnon for sacrificing her. Many will die if she doesn't. And 2, raise Orestes to manhood. 2 very simple things. These were the simple things by the dying wish of Iphigenia. And Clytemnestra doesn't obey either, that little turd. And of course, she infamously kills Agamemnon with an axe upon his return from Troy. And this play had the gall to make me feel sympathetic for her, but bearing in mind the future, I find such sympathy to be very hard. Iphigenia is supposedly the reason why Clytemnestra decided to kill Agamemnon. And yet Iphigenia herself asked her not to kill Agamemnon or to be angry at him. It just shows you how that whole family, Clytemnestra and her sister Helen, are just horrible, horrible people. Now Iphigenia's reasoning to her mother, her motive if you will, "Thou did not bear me for myself alone, but as a public blessing to all Hellas." Alright, you little socialist. She's just being more caring of others than herself. Very noble, very admirable. Now this play ends with Iphigenia's sacrifice, but right as the knife is coming down to kill her, she is swept away by the Greek god Artemis. Now that sounds like a story you've heard before, doesn't it? Sort of reminds me of the story of Abraham, don't you think? I don't know, I just think it's interesting. But it turns out, again going back to the Clytemnestra thing, she killed Agamemnon because Agamemnon killed Iphigenia. But as we see at the end of this play, Iphigenia was actually never killed. Of course, in this line of mythology, of course, in real life, that probably isn't true. Nonetheless, this sets this up for another Euripides play, Iphigenia among the Tauri, which shows Iphigenia all grew up, where she has been placed after she was snatched away by the gods. Okay, so my questions to you are, what's your take on all of this emotional back and forth, and do you think that Agamemnon was right to make the decision to kill Iphigenia? Well, I'm Jakob Stief, the long-haired freaky dude. Thank you for watching this book review. If you enjoy reading literature, or history, science, or math, then might I suggest taking the Great Books Challenge. I am sure it is something that you would love to do. If you want to see other things other than book reviews, or such as like cooking tutorials, how to use a typewriter, or now time-lapses of making art, then might I suggest checking out my channel and hitting the subscribe button. There are many things you'll enjoy, and there are many more things in the future to come that you will enjoy. I'm Jakob Stief, the long-haired freaky dude. Thank you for watching this book review. Be sure to have a great day.